Hey guys, what's up? So today's video is all about recommendations and showing you guys kind of my routine for oily skin. Now these also work for combination skin, and I do give some suggestions for that as well, but I am definitely somebody that I'm pretty oily all over. So I just kind of went through with you guys and did kind of my foundation, concealer, and powder routine and all of that, and showing you guys what I like to use, why I like to use it, how it helps me, everything like that. So I actually did this as a recommendation from one of my subscribers, so thank you so much for recommending that for me. I loved doing this video. So if you guys have any other recommendations of what you would like to see, please leave them in the comments down below. And then the other question I have for you guys is both this video and my last one, and my declutter one too, but like that one I didn't show myself very much. I've actually been filming just with like natural sunlight, like you can kind of see in the mirror behind me that I'm just filming in front of my bedroom window versus setting up the ring light. So let me know how you guys like that, or if I should kind of go back to the ring light, because I don't know, I've kind of been feeling it. It strictly depends on the time of day that I film, but right now I've kind of been feeling the natural lighting, so let me know what you guys think. But please be sure to like and subscribe before you leave, and if you would like to see how I like to keep my face matte and what works really well for me with a natural looking matte foundation that wears beautifully throughout the day, then just keep on watching. Alright you guys, so the first thing with keeping your foundation good throughout the day and like works well with oily to combination skin is a good primer. So I'm going to show you guys my favorite ones and kind of explain to you why they are my favorite ones. So my all-time favorite foundation primer is the Too Faced Hangover RX Primer. Now this is one that is good for all skin types, but why I love it is because it feels like a lotion when you put it on, but then it gets kind of tacky, and it really helps to make the makeup last all day without it looking too dry and crusty when you first put it on. So I absolutely love that one. Then I actually have been into this a little bit more recently than I used to, but I'm obsessed with it. This is the Benefit Porefessional, and this is just a little mini size one that I have, but I've been loving this for just this area of my cheeks, my nose, and like the T-zone area. Excuse me. But this has been phenomenal for minimizing pores and kind of mattifying the center of the face where most of us get more oily throughout the day. Then my next two favorite primers are when I am dealing with any breakouts, and especially in like the summer months where I'm even oilier, this does help to minimize my oil a little bit without feeling dry and crusty on the skin. So this is the Anti-Blemish Foundation Primer from Merle Norman, but I usually only use it if I am dealing with a breakout, just because it does have salicylic acid in it, which is meant to help with breakouts. So, and then this is another one of my favorites. Now this one I use on the other areas of my face, like the outside areas of the face, if I'm dealing with a little bit of dryness, because sometimes I do right in through here in like the winter months and stuff like that. And this is the Merle Norman Foundation Primer Plus SPF 15, and then other times I do use it all over my face too if I'm going to be outside. It's very, very similar to the Smashbox like original primer. They have a very similar feel. I feel like they perform very similar on the face, just this has an SPF to it, whereas the Smashbox one doesn't. So I do love that one as well. Now for today, I'm going to do the Benefit Porefessional, and I'm going to take a little bit of that. Screw this back. So I have about that much right there on my finger, and I'm going to use this all in through the T-zone area to help to minimize pores and to mattify that area. And then I do want to let you guys know, like, I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to me with my makeup, I do kind of embrace the oil as the day goes on. So all of these recommendations are not necessarily like this is gonna keep you matte all day long, because I can't guarantee that. It really can't. Oily skin is so difficult to truly keep it mattified all day, and I have not found anything that has worked for me like that will keep me matte all day without making me look dry and crusty when I first put it on, and I don't like that. So these products are more so to help control the oil, as well as make sure that when the oil starts to come through, that your foundation's not going to break up or separate, and it's not going to look gross as you start to get oily throughout the day. But it does help that, you know, you're not going to start looking like a greased chicken like I do until about 6 to 8 hours after you've had your makeup on, which is gonna happen when you have oily skin. Like, there's no way around it. So do keep that in mind with this kind of routine that I'm showing you guys in my recommendations. You know, I don't have a true recommendation that's gonna keep somebody matte all day without making you look dry. So, because I haven't found it yet. So I did that on my T-zone, and then now I'm gonna take the Too Faced Hangover RX one, and I'm gonna do this pretty much just on the outer areas of my face. So I took just like about a pea-size amount, just because I can definitely feel I'm a little dry right through here. Okay, so the next is foundations. So after you got primer out of the way, the next thing that you want to look for is a foundation that works well with your skin. And again, like I just said a little bit ago, is you want a foundation that's not going to break up or separate as the oil comes through. Because I know any of you that are oiler out there have dealt with, like, you'll see like the pores in your nose start to come through as that oil starts to come through, and it looks friggin' disgusting. So these are some of my like favorite foundations that I have found that do not do that whatsoever, and they hold up really well throughout the day. They don't oxidize as the oil comes through and turn you orange, because I definitely have dealt with stuff like that when I was younger too, as well as it doesn't separate and get gunky or anything like that. They are my all-time favorite foundations for not looking cakey, not looking too dry as you first put them on, but working really well with oily skin. So alright, the first one that I want to talk about, actually I'm going to talk about this one first, is the L'Oreal Pro Matte. So if you want a matte foundation, this is it. I personally don't usually use this one all on its own unless I do use more of a hydrating primer, and that's just because I don't like being that matte early on. But if you want to be matte, this is a go-to. I use it more so as putting a couple drops of it into another foundation that I need to make it last a little bit longer. So this is a holy grail. That is an amazing foundation. Alright, the next one is the MAC Studio Fix Fluid. This is a staple foundation for anyone that wants full coverage but needs more matte. This is actually what I use in my kit on most clients. I do mix it with some face and body if they are a little more dry or if they don't want as full coverage, stuff like that, but I use it on everybody because it is absolutely phenomenal. It is, I would say, more of a matte finish, very full coverage, doesn't get cakey, anything like that. It is phenomenal. So then my next one is another drugstore one, and this is the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear. This is amazing. This is honestly one of my favorite foundations, and I've been reaching for it a ton. And it's more of a demi-matte foundation with a medium to full coverage. So it is medium to full, and you're gonna get, you know, pretty good coverage with it, and you can most definitely build it up. But this does really help to keep you matte throughout the day. It does really well with the oil and everything like that. So this is a fantastic foundation. Then my next favorite is the Smashbox Studio Skin 15-Hour Wear Hydrating Foundation. This is one of my holy grails. Now, I cannot remember who the makeup artist was that I had seen recommend it on Instagram, but they had said that this is a staple in their makeup kit, and that was why I tried it, and it's incredible. So I would highly recommend it. It is more of a medium coverage, but you can build it up, and it is kind of in between a demi matte and a matte. So it's a little more matte than demi matte, but not like kind of matte. So absolutely love this one. So I am going to be using this today. Now I do kind of need to mix shades because this one's a little light, this one's too dark. So I'm going to use mostly 0.5 with just a little bit of 2.1. I apologize if you hear my dogs. They're so loud. Okay, and my favorite way to apply foundation is with a damp beauty sponge. This one is the Morphe, I think it's called like the Highlight and Contour Sponge, and I really, really love this one. Alright, so then the next step in my foundation routine, which is going to sound crazy to all of you because I am oily, but I'm going to take the Lilac B Aglow Face Mist. Now, I have not ever tried setting my face with this, and it would probably make me very glowy, but I don't notice that it gives me any sort of glow using it on my damp sponge. And I started doing this because Jaclyn Hill really recommended it and like raved about doing this, and it really does help to not have your foundation get cakey. And I love how like hydrated it looks and a little more skin-like. But I've actually noticed that the Lilac B one makes me a little more matte and not really as glowy as using Fix Plus. So if you're a little more on the dry side, I would suggest using Fix Plus to spritz your brush, which I know that sounds crazy, but I've tried both and that's what I have found. So I'm going to spritz the sponge. I do keep it a little bit away, but spritz it, and then we're going to go in and we're going to start blending this out. And I do spritz it in between each area of the face. Okay, so that is what it looks like, foundation all on. So then my next step is concealer. So if you are more on the dry side, this one might not work as well for you, but if you are oily, this is the way to go. This is the Tarte Shape Tape. I do mix these two colors. It's light neutral and fair neutral, and this is my holy grail, I almost said foundation, concealer. It does not seem to crease on me or anything like that, but it is more matte, which works really, really well with, you know, being more oily. I got a piece of hair on my face. Sorry about that. I could feel a piece of hair on me. But so this concealer holds up really, really well and is also a really good one to conceal like blemishes for anyone with oily skin as well. But how I do like to use it is I still like to use that Lilac B Aglow Face Mist and spritz my sponge. And I actually used to do this back in the past. I used to always use what's it called, MAC Pro Longwear concealer, you know, like everybody else, and that was around the time that I started kind of watching makeup tutorials and stuff on YouTube, and I feel like that was like what everyone was using at the time. So, you know, of course that was what I was using too, and I felt like it was kind of dry, and that was before I was even using a beauty sponge as well. Like, I was working at Merle Norman at the time, and we didn't even have beauty sponges like that you dampen and stuff. We just had like compact sponges. So I always used a brush, and I just felt like it was too dry. So I had really gotten into spritzing my concealer brush with Fix Plus and then going in and blending out my concealer, because I felt like it really helped to make it look not so dry and crepey on my under eyes. So it's funny that I've kind of went back to doing this again, and I think it really, really helps. Now, if you have oily eyelids, I would say probably don't do this, but I actually deal with a little bit of eczema around my eyes, so I love this step. Alright, so then the next one is powder. So we're going to use the Cover FX Perfect Setting Powder, and mine is in Translucent Light. This setting powder is absolutely phenomenal. I love it because it's not, I don't know, everyone says like the Laura Mercier one is like the holy grail for like if you want to be matte, but personally with the Laura Mercier one, and I'm realizing I don't have my towel out. Ignore me, I'm getting my little towel to sit on my lap for if I get powder on me. Personally, what I've noticed with the Laura Mercier one is like the translucent is kind of a little like I see it on my skin, whereas this I don't. So I put some in the cap, and I'm going to take my damp beauty sponge and, ooh, I got a lot on there. Okay, pick some up like this, and then I do a V around the eye area, and I take it and I kind of stamp it. And this is really, really going to help to keep you matte all day long. Stamping this translucent powder in with the beauty sponge. It's kind of like baking, but not putting on so much powder that you have to wipe it away. But it's really, really going to help to keep you matte all day long. And it's going to help from like keeping that foundation in place, making sure it's not going to move, and everything like that. So I'm just taking that and I set my eye area, I set kind of this area through here, this triangle area, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to set my T-zone as well, because for most of us that is where we get the most oily throughout the day. Okay, so next we're going to set the rest of the face. So my favorite is the Merle Norman Ultra Powder Foundation, and I use the shade Ultra Cameo, and I have hit pan on it. But if you are a little more dry in the other areas of your face, a good one is the Hourglass Veil Translucent Setting Powder. This one is a great one if you are a little more dry on the outer areas of your face, like if you have more combination skin. This is a really good one to give a subtle glow, but not too glowy, and it's not going to look weird of like glow matte or anything like that. But I'm going to use the Merle Norman one today with my sponge. I really, really think that using the sponge to apply it, the damp beauty sponge, versus a brush really, really helps to prolong the wear of my makeup. So I don't even know how long I've been doing this. And I do take it over the areas that I set with the translucent powder too, and that's just because this has a little bit of color to it because it is a powder foundation, but you do not have to. But I do as a little extra powder, give it a little extra color, stuff like that. But I don't know how long I've been doing this of like using the powder with the foundation sponge, but it doesn't ruin the powder at all because the sponge is not like dripping wet at this point. Like it's pretty dried out at this point. So it does not dry, like ruin the powder or anything like that, but it has helped my makeup to stay like nobody's business. It does so much better than just setting it with a brush. I found that with a powder like that and setting it with a brush is better if you have dry skin. So like if I, you know, have been drying out a lot of breakouts and my skin's a little more dry from that, then I'll use a brush to set my face versus a sponge, but usually I use a sponge. Alright, so next I'm going to just go in with bronzer, and again I have hit pan. This is my Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer, and I'm just going to speed through this really quick because this doesn't really have anything to do with the foundation part, but I'm using my JH02 and put this all over the face. Okay, so then the next step that we're going to do is I'm going to take that Cover FX powder and we're going to bake. And this really, really helps to prolong the wear of your makeup because it's going to really help that, like, if you rest your hand on your face at all, sorry, I have a piece of hair. But if you rest your hand on your face at all, it's not going to make this foundation right here, it's not going to make it smudge. And it cleans up your bronzer too, but And then I'm going to also take it along my nose. And this is, again, to help clean up that bronzer as well as help to mattify. Alright, just like that. Okay, so then the next thing with, you know, trying to help with mattifying the skin all day is going in with a matte blush. So although I love a luminous blush, when the oil starts to come through, they do not look very good. So one of my favorites is the Tarte blushes. This one is in the shade Seduce, which is what I'm going to use today. And I'm going to use my Morphe JH04. But Tarte blushes are really good, and then also MAC blushes are really, really good as well for just a good matte blush that's going to stay matte. It's not going to wear away as the day goes on, because anybody that's oily, I'm sure, has dealt with that. I know I definitely have, of that, like, as the day goes on, it's like that blush kind of disappears. And these are ones that don't really do that so much. They still are going to fade a little bit, and that happens to everybody, but not like other blushes do. Okay, so now I'm going to dust away any baking powder that I have left with my Morphe JH07, because it doesn't need to sit on there long. I usually like to let it sit on with my blush so that I don't get too messy with my blush. And I don't do this all the time, especially if I'm in a hurry. But here lately I've been doing it a little more often because I really like how it cleans this all up. Because sometimes I get too low in this area right here, and it really helps to just clean it up. So if I have time, I do like to do that. But you know how it is. If you're in a hurry, you ain't got time. Okay, so then the next thing is I like to use a setting spray before I go in with highlighter. And the reason for that is I think it helps to make the highlighter look a little more wet versus like it's sitting on the skin. But I'll talk about highlight as I do that and where to place it for if you are oily, because you don't want to place it like some people do, at least that I see throughout YouTube and stuff like that. I'm going to use Jaclyn Hill for an example. I love Jaclyn, and she is very dry, so she does a ton of highlighter, and she does a lot in this area, like the apple of the cheek area. Do not do this if you're oily, because it's going to look horrible as the day goes on, and as that oil starts to come through, it's going to make that area look that much more oily. You really just want to pinpoint where you want that highlight. So I'm going to get into that in just a second. So I'm just going to set my face really quick. This is the Morphe Continuous Setting Mist. And the reason for a setting spray is it's not going to make you look dewy, but it is going to help to kind of sink all of those powders that we have put on into the skin, because we do have a lot of powder on the face to help to keep us nice and matte like we are right now. And this is just going to help to make it look a little more skin-like. And it also does help to prolong the wear of your makeup. So let's just set the face. Okay, so I'm going to give that just a couple seconds to dry. So the highlight that I'm going to be using today is the Benefit Cookie Highlight. I'm so happy that they made these in a single, because I know Jaclyn Hill was raving about it. I think Kathleen Lights was too, and maybe even somebody else, but I cannot think of who it was, about it being in that palette, and I just hadn't bought it. And then when I saw that they had brought it out in singles, I was like, I need it. So I am going to use this, and I'm going to use my Morphe JH09. So I dip my brush in there, and then I kind of tap it off. And then where you want your highlights to be, and I learned this from, I think it was Shay Mitchell's makeup artist, but smile, and where the top of your cheekbone hits is where you want that highlight to go. So right in there, and then I like to bring it right up through here a little bit so that it just catches the light. But you don't want to bring it any farther in than about right here on the face, so like about the end of the eye, You don't really want to bring it in much further than that, and that is because the further you get it into this apple of the cheek, the more it's going to accentuate that oil as the day goes on. So I like to keep it a little more back here and just on the tops of the cheekbones, like so. And then I kind of bring it around the eyebrow, because that's natural to have a highlight around here as to where you would glisten when the sun hits you. And then I always like a little bit of highlight on the cupid's bow, but you do not have to do this if you do not wish to. But the other one that I know a lot of people do is highlight down the nose. Don't do it if you're oily, because again, it's going to accentuate any oil that you have coming through on your nose, and you want to keep that highlight away from the center of the face. If you're going to highlight the center of the face, you want to do it with cream products of concealer, or after you're done using like highlighting powders versus like a highlight like that. You want to matte to highlight the center of the face. Now I'm not going to do that right now just because I am so fair, but I love like MAC Pro Emphasize is really good. The highlight powder that's in the Smashbox, the Cali Contour, that one's really good. I really like the ones in the Kat Von D Shade and Light Contour palette. Those are really good. But those are a good way to highlight the center of the face for oily or combination skin without using an actual highlighter. So, alright you guys, that is the face. I'm going to go finish off the rest of my makeup, and I'll see you in just a little bit. Alright you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something from this and found some good recommendations that you guys are excited to try. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again in my next one. Bye!